You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
This is Andy.
And this is Matt.
And you're listening to
The Hop Podcast with no name.
What a dumb name.
It's so stupid. Episode 51. That's the number. We're starting. We're back to not talking about nothing.
I'm pretty sure last episode was just us not talking about anything.
Although some could argue that none of our episodes are talking about anything.
Some could argue it's just more of the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Back to normal. Well, we had said in episode 49, hey, we're going to talk about this topic. Skipped it 50, but we're going to go back to that topic.
Correct. Which is almost true.
Yes, sort of. We're gonna go adjacent to that topic, but in the direction of getting there.
Directionally
eventually.
accurate to that topic. Which the topic was, if you're in a position in an organization where you have some amount of direct authority over programmatic change or cultural change, and you had to create the first few steps of what it would be like to implement some of these HOP concepts. So you're not just using, influential leadership, but you have some amount of direct leadership to be able to do this. Where would you start?
Yep.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that's
that's
sort of what we promised people we would talk about. And then as we were preparing to talk about it, your thought was, well, isn't there something that we have to make sure is clear first? Which I agree with you.
Which is a real feat for me. It's a real accomplishment
that I agree
that you agreed with me on this. So that makes me, I'm just, wow. Giddy.
Yeah, this has made your week.
But it's something that kept coming up in just conversations we've had over the weeks and months.
It came up like 4 times just in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so really I'm not that good. I just have a good pattern recognition of what's been happening.
Yeah. And the thing that we wanted to make sure was clear first is what HOP is solving for, which is a conversation that we do have a lot. And I'm not I'm not going to, despite the number of times that I have this conversation, I am not going to pretend I'm good at having it. Well, I'm going to bumble my way through it.
Well, let me give you two outs.
Okay.
That you can hang your head on when you get there at the end and you think, wow, that was tough. One is, it is dependent to who we're speaking to, because every organization is a unique animal. So it is somewhat situation dependent. So there's no blanket answer. I mean, there's blanket parts, but not one blanket answer. The second one is, I have never heard anyone articulate this the same way twice.
Sure.
When we're talking to people.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it is somewhat dependent on the organization, but even how they're getting there, it's never been the same.
Yeah.
It's always different. So this is, if someone was like, give me your 3-step plan at that level to make change, I would say this is step 0.
Correct.
This is what you have to.
This is foundationally what has to be in place even to have a plan make any sense.
Yeah.
And when we talk about what HOP is solving for, I think the reason why it becomes so difficult to articulate is not only dependent upon the organization, but depending upon the level in an organization you are in, it will solve for different things. Meaning, depending upon your span of control, influence, and honestly, we all have similar concerns, but depending on your span of control and your span of influence, the characteristics of what HOP can bring to the table is going to change. So if you're at a site level, many of the things that we're solving for, we've talked sort of ad nauseum about on this podcast of, we're learning about operational struggles and making changes in those spaces and helping understand whether or not the rules have operational fidelity and trying to bring that information to leadership teams. We've talked about that a lot. When we are talking to someone who is, picture maybe like a VP position or a COO, and they are trying to understand what HOP is solving for. Actually, most of the time they come to us and say, we would like to start this HOP journey. And
then we say, why?
Yeah.
And we don't, like, we're not getting to the deep rooted, or just, hey, oh, great. Why?
Yeah. Why?
What are you looking to solve?
Yep.
What are you looking to do? I guess we probably ask, what are you looking to do?
Well, yeah. What are you looking to do?
And it's a wide range of answers every time.
Yeah. The answers are dramatically different depending upon who we're talking to, right? So we'll say, okay, so what do you think HOP will help with? I think is generally how we would phrase it. And, it is everything from, we have a TRIR rate that needs reducing, to, we need all of our employees to have the same risk perception, to we're not very good at listening to each other, right? And sort of everything in between.
We do not have a culture of accountability.
Yep. Yeah,
They'll just say blanket safety culture.
Like, yes, we need to improve our safety culture.
Yep.
Yeah. And so then we spend a lot of time in those conversations trying to help articulate what HOP will help with and what it won't help with. And that, as you said, is step 0, which we thought we would try to have that conversation here as step 0.
Yeah, I guess have that conversation or help those either who are looking to get started, mentally do the gymnastics to have this conversation, or if you're someone who has tangible influence into that level, how can you help?
How can you help articulate what this vision is of what it's supposed to help with? And I would say the person that can speak to this really well, and I give credit for everything we're about to say as originally coming from something that I've heard at some point through him, is Dr. Todd Conklin, right? He is a master at being able to help folks at this level in an organization understand what the intent of this space is. The piece that I think is helpful, and the piece that we start with at that level, is the recognition that it is a different strategy in safety, if we're talking about it specifically from a safety lens, than what we have used historically. So strategies historically have included making sure that we have a lot of focus in the compliance space, right? So understanding what the sort of baseline rules are, creating rules around specific areas of how we conduct business, and then making sure that people are compliant to that.
What's a good example of that?
So compliance requirements around something as simple as, making sure that people are aware of what chemicals they're working with. Those types of compliance requirements didn't exist, years ago. All the way up to, controls that we would use on a regular basis for energy, our ability to protect ourselves from energy, like everything from lockout, tagout to fall protection. So the baseline requirements of, hey, when you are at this height, you should be wearing fall protection. Historically, those types of rules didn't exist, and now they do. And we have audits and programs and, actual compliance agencies that come to make sure that people are following those rules. And there's also been times in history, right, after this compliance movement, where we looked at designing so that the mechanical aspects of our system would fail safely. So many of the things in the PSM space. And if you look at the number of injuries over those spans of history, they have come down dramatically. And obviously the clear effect on our ability to actually allow people to go home safely. Where HOP comes into play, and this is, the explanation that I think Todd has done an amazing job over time sort of teaching the world about, is that we've actually reached a place in history where we've saturated those strategies. And in many organizations, the pattern of what they see is actually quite low injury rate, but then something catastrophic will still happen. So you won't have, you won't have a lot of people hurting themselves on things like slips, trips, falls, or you won't have as many cuts as you had before, or, as many ergonomic strains. But then, somebody could have a really, really terrible, horrible day and an explosion and, 15 people lose their life, or a crane collapses and 5 people lose their life. So the HOP space is actually designed to help with that trend that a lot of organizations are seeing. And in order to help with it, there is a very different focus on what we're paying attention to. And that's the step 0 of, are we aligned on what we're paying attention to and why we'd be paying attention to it?
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
This is going to be super ignorant. But just remember, I didn't work in safety. And I'm thinking of the answer, but want to be clear. So you're saying we started with compliance, and then we added in the PSM. Would you say it's layered on top of,
yes,
or it's in lieu of? I mean, I know the answer is it's layered
on top of. Yes.
But is the thought that we're going to layer on top here again?
Yeah, we don't want to get rid of baseline compliance requirements. Certainly, we don't want to get rid of designing to fail safely. All of those things are necessary elements in order to allow people to do their job, go home safely. Certainly, the strategy of how we assess the effectiveness of those things, as well as this other aspect that we're going to talk to of mitigation outside of the PSM space, that is layered on top of general compliance requirements.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure you said that out loud. Because the amount of times we have to go back and say that in a conversation is astounding.
Yes, absolutely fair. So then this next piece, okay, so if we have this saturated strategy, what's next? And the best way that I know how to describe it is actually very similar to the way that Eric had articulated it a few episodes back, of the recognition that no matter how hard we try, our people are not perfect, our procedures are not perfect, our tooling isn't perfect, our process isn't perfect. And when we recognize that that's true, then we also recognize that because of the imperfection of all of these things, inevitably we will have incidents, we will have accidents, we will have things that, are not our best day ever. These types of elements will happen.
End up being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Correct. And because we will have that, our strategy to deal with that first comes from recognizing it's true, and then second comes from acknowledging that depending upon the design of things, we have some amount of control over how bad our bad day is. And the analogy that I think is useful, something that we already do across the globe, is recognizing that we, in almost every building everywhere in organizations, have some sort of fire suppression system. So we have a sprinkler system, or we have fire extinguishers, or we have something even more sophisticated than that. We have smoke alarms. And the reason we have those things Well, there's lots of reasons, including insurance company requirements, but the reasons that we have those things as a baseline requirement, the thought behind it is the recognition that we will have a fire. We don't want a fire.
Say that part again. I will keep beating this drum.
Yeah.
Which is we don't want a fire.
We don't want a fire. So we put them in place because we recognize that we will have a fire. Like, probability is high that at some point in time, a fire will occur somewhere in that building for many, many different reasons, all of which we try really hard to prevent. But we also recognize, despite how much energy and time we put into preventing fires, at some point we will have a fire. And if we don't want that fire to destroy every asset in that building, potentially killing a bunch of people, potentially causing, huge catastrophic explosions. If we don't want that to happen, then
which we don't,
as far as I know.
That's also a hot point of view, by the way.
Yes. If we don't want that to happen, then we plan accordingly. And we plan by saying, when we do have a fire, what do we have in place in order to make sure that the fire doesn't have a catastrophic outcome? It is that same mindset, except used broadly. Right. So it's a mindset that we're not unfamiliar with, but many of us are very unfamiliar with it from a large scale of what does this look like, for example, in the personal safety realm. And the piece of the puzzle that I think people get stuck on in terms of this strategy is that it actually doesn't have a large bearing on something like your TRIR rate, because most of the data that goes into something like a recordability rate are going to be things that are high frequency, and usually high frequency and some lower severity. Not always, obviously, depending upon the makeup of things that are happening in an organization. But we had this mental model historically that everything was preventable. And because we had the mental model that everything was preventable, then the strategy that we would use in order to address it, similar to how Eric was talking to this, it was to find the things of highest frequency and start there. So a Pareto chart, in the same way that you would look at it from, the quality aspect in an organization or an operational upset, you take the things that were happening most frequently because those feel as though they are the most important because it is the largest number. Within the safety space, although some things are a higher number, it doesn't necessarily mean it is of the most importance, because the things that end up injuring us are usually not the same things that end up killing us. So if we have 90+% of our attention on the highest frequency things, and we're only leaving 10% of our attention on the things that can cause catastrophic failure, it's probably not enough attention. And so the shift is from saying, okay, recordability is a metric. It's a metric. It's a requirement. And in many countries, it is a legal requirement for us to have, for us to know, for our employees to know. But it is not necessarily a good measure of how safe we are in terms of recognizing that it doesn't account for the possibility for catastrophic failure. What does account for that are, do you have sprinklers, right? Do they work? Do you have
fire suppression sprinklers, not the ones that go in the front lawn? You have kids. Just gotta be perfectly clear.
So do you have sprinklers? Do they work? Do you have smoke alarms? Do they work? Those are measures, and those are in the mitigative space, right? The recognition that the bad thing that we didn't want to happen has already happened, and now what do we have in place to make sure it doesn't get worse? In the step zero of the discussion is that the strategy we want to take, right? Is the strategy we want to take is we want to take more attention from the easy to see things, highest frequency things, but things that are not going to change someone's life, right? A cut on somebody's hand most often is going to heal. Most often there's mitigative defenses built in, specifically even to our body to heal it. It is not the same thing as release of a large amount of energy that somebody is not going to be able to recover from. And so are we comfortable? Do we want to change the strategy from focusing on things like high frequency to focusing on things like high potential for catastrophic failure, which is why organizations start to shift the metrics that they're looking at as well to the space of SIF and PSIF. That is strategy question number one. And you have to get on the same page as to whether or not that what you are trying to solve for as an organization or not?
And that, I think, is such a crucial part of this conversation. One person can start with that conversation themselves, but they need to have that conversation with their peers.
Yeah.
And so you really need to get to a place where you feel comfortable articulating it to yourself and to others as to why you feel like we should go down this road as a company.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that is always happening, just based on the conversations we have. I think it's very much on the side of, I know this is good. I maybe can't articulate why exactly, but I know I want to go this way. And so let's do it.
Yeah. And I want to be clear that doesn't mean that we have to give up or that we should give up the other aspects that have worked so well in safety. I'm going to reiterate the thing that you said at the beginning that you made me say.
So you're going to reiterate what I've reiterated 8 times.
Is that this deliberate strategy is a deliberate strategy to understand, look for, strengthen mitigation. But that doesn't mean you give up on prevention or you give up on compliance or you give up. All of those things actually necessarily have to be in place for even this to start to make sense to do. It's a strategy that requires some amount of maturity to be able to use. If an organization is struggling with general compliance of, we don't even have permits in place for things, then this is probably not something to add to the plate at that point in time. Let's spend our attention making sure that we have the general baseline expectations put in place.
Which is why this is where I will bring us back to, it's not a program.
Yeah.
Because historically, I think the thought was, great sense. What I've heard is when people are used to bringing in new safety programs, it was, hey, that thing that we care about, TRIR, let's make it lower.
Yeah.
And that was just, okay, let's do it this year and then let's try something new next year. But our goal is to consistently focus
Our goal is to make it zero.
Make it zero. How do we get closer?
How do we get closer? Because zero is the goal.
Yeah.
And the thought process was, if we get to zero, that includes the really bad stuff. Like the really bad stuff is also zero.
Yes. So the thought on this first question before we go down this HOP lens is hey, historically we've looked for things that help us get closer to zero, and what you have to do to really get into the HOP space is challenge if that is even the right thought to have anymore.
Yeah.
And what are you going to replace it with?
Yeah.
And so it's not programmatic. It's not, okay, go do this better.
Right. It's not do more of the same harder.
It is, hey, this area that we focused on for so long, is that even the right area to focus on? And that is a super challenging question to ask yourself and to ask your peers, but it is necessary.
Yeah. And I don't even want to say, is it the right area to focus on? Because clearly it has been the right area to focus on. It's whether or not, is it the right area to continue with the same focus without another strategy? Meaning we've focused so much on it, we've saturated the strategy. This is as good as we're going to get in most places. The noise of whether one or two more people get injured is going to fluctuate a recordability rate. That noise of a few more people tripping over their own 2 feet at any moment in time, or somebody slipping and getting
recovering
cut
back
and
to
recovering
normal
at any
state.
moment in time. That's where we're in many places. We're in an area where it's just noise in this data, and we've reached a saturation place. And then the question is, well, if that's good, if that place is kind of as good as we're going to get it, what's next? And is the next thing to try to bring that to zero, right? That's the question, is the next thing to try to get from low recordability to nothing? Or is the next thing accepting that, humans, we do things like trip over our own 2 feet and fall downstairs and slip on things. And we're probably never going to be able to bubble wrap the world in a way that we won't have exposure to things that will make that happen. We won't be able to get work done if that's the way that we are trying to make improvement. And also in these same places that have this recordability quite low and there's just sort of noise in the system, they still have catastrophic failure. And so what are we missing? And then the HOP is this is what we're missing, is that we don't have the equivalent of sprinkler systems. for much of work.
Fire suppression sprinkler systems. We don't have those. But question for you.
Yeah.
Because I think we can continue this next episode as part of this greater conversation about the steps. But let's say and this has happened plenty of times, let's say we're not there as an organization. We don't feel like we have all the necessary pieces in place to actually have a TRIR that is low.
Oh, meaning we're already,
Can you do both? Do you have to wait for that to be in place? Or can you continue to put in those safeguards while also challenging the other parts of the system that HOP helps you challenge?
I get stuck. I get stuck in answering this question.
It's probably good that we script our questions,
Yeah.
which is obviously, if anyone's listening to these, not true.
I get stuck in answering this question. I get stuck because I get stuck between what I know as a real life limitation to the amount of time that humans have to get things done in an organization, and also what is crucially important. And what I'm stuck between is to have baseline compliance requirements is a legal obligation in organizations. But those baseline compliance requirements don't necessarily mean that somebody isn't going to lose their life. And so in an ideal world, you'd want to be able to do both. You have to have both, but to, wait on the ability to put in mitigation just because our paperwork doesn't work in terms of legal requirement feels morally like the wrong thing to do. But then I also recognize that in terms of the physical capability and time that people have, it would be really, really hard, and is really, really hard for organizations that try to do both at the same time. So I don't really know how to answer that. Morally, I would say you absolutely would want to do both.
I'll answer it in just the simplest way that I can. It just requires a really honest conversation. Not where do we want to be, not lie to me and tell me we're okay. Just at a senior level, let's really talk about what's happening. And if you don't know, go and learn.
Yeah.
But let's just be honest with ourselves. Here's where we're at.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Well said. All right. So that's step zero.
That's step zero.
So step zero, we have to be able to articulate what HOP is going to help us with. We have to be able to see that it is a different strategy than most organizations have had for quite a long time. And the reason why there's all the rest of this emphasis on operational learning, on the 5 principles, it is to enable the outcome of step zero, right? It is to enable the ability to learn, to improve, to make sure that we understand and we're having open conversation about whether or not the sorts of rules and mitigation strategies we have in place, if they're actually working. It's to understand places where we have gaps and brittleness in our system we didn't even know we had in order to allow ourselves to put in prevention or mitigation solutions. All of the pieces of the puzzle that people tend to know as HOP, of these 5 principles of how we're going to learn and we're going to bring people together, we're going to have operational learning. It is all designed to be able to enable this strategy of looking at the places that are most brittle, that also have the highest level of potential for catastrophic failure, and designing things differently to allow ourselves a better chance of not having a really bad day turn into the worst day that we've had.
And if you listen to this episode, just be honest with yourself if you had that conversation with yourself or with others.
Right. Is that what we think HOP is doing? Or do we have this secret wish that HOP is going to somehow make it so nobody trips over their own 2 feet
Make
again?
it so everyone has the same risk perception at all. What do we think it's solving for? And what does our peer think it's solving for?
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, a great place to start.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for, this is a long one. Sorry. If you go for a run and you listen to this and you stop when the episode's over, we're sorry. I hope you had a good run. But thanks for listening. We'll talk soon.
Well, that's it.
Yep. Another one in the books. We did it.
If you want to send us any of your thoughts, actually fling us any of your thoughts, you can do so at the website www.hop,
hopodcast.com.
That's HOPPODCAST.com.
It's still such a stupid name.
It's such a different name. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening.
You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.